Hey, welcome back to the stash. Spider-Man is my favorite superhero. He always has been, which means I don't like watching him being brutally killed for no reason whatsoever, but hey, when you got someone like Joe Kelly writing the book, what more can you expect? But him being my favorite character is not because of the powers, the cool costume, or the villains. It's him. Peter Parker. He's a reflection of all of us. He's the everyman, the guy who struggles, fails, picks himself back up, and somehow makes the world just a little bit better in the process. That's what makes him timeless, what makes him Spider-Man. But sometimes, well, most of the time now, the people writing his stories just forget that. Let's not sugarcoat it, this volume of The Amazing Spider-Man has been the worst in the character's history. Zeb Wells' run has been horrible and one big massive insult to Spider-Man and all his readers. And so when the 8 Deaths of Spider-Man story rolled around, I was hoping for this to be at the very least an average palate cleanser from Zeb's time in the book. But besides only 2 issues in this arc, it's been the very opposite. Just when it felt like things were starting to turn around with Justina Ireland's 2 solid issues, 2 issues that actually got Spider-Man, we're back with Joe Kelly, the guy who kicked off this arc, and let's be honest, is the guy who just dragged it down to begin with. It's frustrating, because this story somehow had potential. But it's clear that with Kelly being the more predominant writer of this arc, all of that is just long gone. With this issue in particular doing what Kelly's other issues did by fully killing off any interest I may have had. But before we dive into the ugly, the good, and the downright confusing, I just wanted to take a quick second to let you all know that here at The Stash, we're trying to reach 6,000 subscribers, and any support really does mean the world to me. If you're a Spider-Man fan or just someone who loves comics, consider hitting that subscribe button. It's free and it helps me keep making videos like this. Now, with all that being said, let's take a deep dive into The Amazing Spider-Man issue 65. So our story begins right where we left off last time, with CYRA preparing her battle with Spider-Man, but this isn't just any usual clash, but more so a challenge. She presents him this orb, an orb that will show him the truth, as she puts it, the truth that ARCANE can't seem to handle, the inevitability of death. Before they begin, her brother tries to get a couple of words in before they both promptly tell him to shut up, and then Spider-Man quickly composes himself to begin his maddening trial. What follows is a depressing montage of death. We start off by witnessing Aunt May's slow and devastating passing. Then we move to the death of Peter's love, Mary Jane Watson, as no one's favorite hero, Jackpot, fights side by side with Spider-Man. She ultimately falls in battle to the menacing Hobgoblin. The deaths just keep on piling up, faster and faster, bleaker and bleaker. Jameson from a stroke, Shay a car crash, Betty simply old age, Randy trampled to death, Felicia falls to her demise, Norman, the man who's meant to have a strong healing factor, dies from... well, I don't even know what this is. But through it all, how amazing Spider-Man stays composed, and it's only natural to think, well geez, since he witnessed all the people he loves dearly, with a few exceptions of course, die, surely he can handle the rest, right? Right? Nope. As soon as he sees Miles, Spider-Gwen, and Spider-Boy laying on the ground defeated, he goes into a frenzy and completely loses his mind until he eventually breaks. The trial broke Spider-Man. It's left him depressed, with a completely bleak and depressing view on life. Peter Parker now believes everything is just meaningless due to the inevitability of death. But when we're taken back to the real world, CYRA shows genuine sympathy to Spidey. Now I actually like CYRA a lot. Out of the Scions, she's easily my favorite, but that moment is cut short because her brother uses the chance to leap into an attack and brutally kill Spider-Man. Gee, thanks Joe Kelly. What a way to ruin the win Ireland gave him. Guess we can't have our hero actually accomplish anything in the big 2025. Plus, he was out of the game. It shouldn't matter if he didn't say he forfeited because his sister did it for him. Does a boxer continue the fight if the ref waves him off purely because he doesn't count himself out? Oh God, this book is so bad. But through the horrific display, one thing happens that shocks CYRA. During the entire barbaric attack, Spider-Man kept a hold of the orb the entire time, meaning that he technically beat the challenge. But who cares, am I right? With Joe Kelly writing the book, he'll probably just ruin that too. After this rebirth, it's clear that Spidey is no longer the same person he was. The challenge has deeply affected him. It's affected him so badly to the point where he curses the fate of the Earth. And so our book ends with the Amazing Spider-Man quitting being Earth's champion. I hate to say it, but The Amazing Spider-Man issue 65 is one of the worst chapters for the 8 Deaths of Spider-Man stories so far, and it's no surprise with Joe Kelly returning to the book. It's a major setback, especially since the previous 2 issues by Ireland found some more interesting ways to test Peter's resilience and character. This one feels like a tonal and thematic derailment, losing sight of why we actually like this character, which has become a very common theme with his entire volume of The Amazing Spider-Man. Reading this just left me feeling empty. The art, the writing, the overall direction, it's like the book once again lost sight of what it was trying to be. But let's talk about the art first. We go from McGinnis and Melnikov's fun, energetic styles to Cafu's more photorealistic approach. And don't get me wrong, Cafu's work is beautiful, but the shift feels jarring. The art doesn't just change, it pulls the tone of the story with it. Suddenly everything feels heavier, but not in a way that fits the overall story. This issue feels more contained with its own thing. That's how different it is from the rest. It's like the comic is trying to be 2 different stories at once, and neither one lands. Then there's the script. Joe Kelly used to be a good writer, he's done some great things, but can we seriously keep this man far away from Spider-Man comics? I don't know what he's going for, but Spider-Man is supposed to be about hope. It's about how one person, one regular person, can make a difference, but this issue, it's just so bleak. And if that's the type of Spider-Man he writes when he's facing a major hardship in his life, then I'm dreading his new volume even more now. It's the complete opposite of how it should be. It's not like a hard concept to grasp as well. JMS nailed this aspect of the character. In ASM 500, yes, I know I'm bringing up that masterpiece of a comic again, we see our hero fight his way from the very start of his career all the way to the present day, in an effort that is so inspiring, so raw, so unapologetically Spider-Man. But here he quits, he's now depressed from all he's seen, and gives up not just on a life or 2, but the entire world. Not to mention that Spider-Man feels like a side character once again in his own story, in his own flagship title, trapped in this weird cosmic horror plot that just doesn't suit him. It's all big ideas with no heart, no connection to what makes Spider-Man, well, Spider-Man. And yeah, I get it, this whole story leans into the torture porn side of Spider-Man storytelling that's become oh so popular thanks to Nick Lowe. Editorial just loves to see him suffer, but the problem here is that it's all suffering with no light at the end of the tunnel. Plus, how on earth was CYRA's brother allowed to kill him? It makes 0 sense, even if he said it was a decoy. The whole point of Spidey moving forward to battle his sister was because she forfeited him. That is such a massive loophole in the challenge. He literally got destroyed by Spidey as well. Is Kelly that petty? Is he that petty to the point where he has to undo a win given by Ireland? What the was the point of this? And before I forget, Spider-Man witnessed the love of his life die and brushes it off. Spider-Man witnesses his Aunt May die and brushes it off. Spider-Man sees JJJ, Betty, Randy, and even his current girlfriend dying, and he brushes it off. But the second he sees Miles, Spider-Gwen, and Spider-Boy lying dead on the ground, he genuinely has a massive breakdown. What the are you doing, Marvel? You're telling me he had no reaction watching Aunt May die, the woman he sacrificed his marriage for, to Marvel's equivalent of Satan. In that story, he hated the fact that not only it was because of his identity getting leaked, but because her life was cut short. Cut short of another 5 years max probably, because she's like, what, 100 years old by now? Anyway, he literally threw away his future, his marriage, and a life. The life of his unborn daughter for his old aunt. But here, he's just so nonchalant about it, even though technically in her death, her life was once again cut short. She was badly ill from a plague, and due to her low odds of survival, she refused treatment. That means her life was cut short. Oh, just forget it. Joe Kelly didn't clearly give a writing his story, so why should I anymore? It really is no wonder why he was rewarded with a brand new run for this year. It's so clear he has zero understanding of this character, especially when it comes to him dealing with hardships. Like, Spider-Man stories are supposed to hurt, sure, but the pain means something. Here, it just feels like misery for misery's sake, and honestly, it's exhausting. The pacing, as well, is a giant mess too. There are still 3 more SCIONS for Peter to fight, and it's already starting to really drag. Like, literally, as soon as I finished this issue, I sat there and sighed, knowing we still have to get through 3 more battles. The 8 Deaths of Spider-Man would have fitted a limited series way better. It doesn't feel like it's built for a bigger story arc, and because of that it really hinders the story more so than the horrible writing in my opinion. Because of it, there's no tension, there's no excitement. I feel there's way too many Scions for Peter to battle, not to mention Juggernaut, who was teased a few issues back to never be seen nor mentioned again. Somehow, he has to eventually fit into this entire story. It's way too cluttered. Something more short and simple, it would have been way better for this story, because it would have been enough of a palate cleanser from the horror of Zedwell's run, while not overstaying its unappreciated presence. That said, there's only one positive from this story, and that's easily CYRA. She's the only Scion who actually feels like she has any real depth and character, and her back and forth with Peter is actually interesting and pretty fun to read. It's just a shame it lasts like barely a page. It's the one part of the issue that made me somewhat care, but even she can't save a story that feels this hollow. And let's be real, we all know how this is gonna end. Once this arc wraps up, everything's just gonna reset. Spider-Man will go back to being the same boring status quo of him being a jobless loser who still isn't with Mary Jane, and Nick Lowe and the editorial team will make sure of that and jerk themselves off as they all laugh at us. None of this will matter, and that's the real annoying thing about it all. It's not just that this was a bad issue, it's that this entire arc, this entire f***ing volume, is meaningless. The entire purpose is just to waste our time and to continuously have one more day intact. Spider-Man deserves better. We, the fans, deserve better. Ultimately, The Amazing Spider-Man issue 65 is a misstep that underscores the challenges of balancing ambitious storytelling with the character's core identity. It's a story trying to say something profound and deep, but it forgets what makes Spider-Man resonate with us, the readers. And so, with that all being said, here's to another year of Ultimate Spider-Man outselling The Amazing Spider-Man.